What is up? Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Picture Perfect podcast. I'm Holly Pierce with my co-host Kat Osterman, and we are joined by a very special guest today, somebody that is near and dear to both Kat and my heart, Brooke Vestal. She was a 2016 18 and under PGF National Champion as only a sophomore, which led her to become the #1 recruit in the nation of her class. She was a 3-time high school All-American, 2018 Texas High School Player of the Year. She had a 2021 national championship with Oklahoma, and then went on to also pitch at Ole Miss and then finish up her career at Texas A&M, where she also finished up being a grad assistant this past year. And she's now coaching the Texas Bombers, 16 and under, and she's got a great Instagram page too. Spinny Gals on Instagram, go follow. If you watched Texas A&M the last couple years and you remember that picture with crazy spin, that would be Brooke. So she talks all things spin on her Instagram. Go follow that. But we are super happy to have you on the show. We love you, Brooke, and welcome to the Picture Perfect podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here today with two people that have really shaped my journey and made me who I am.
Brooke, again, I'll follow Holly's sentiments. Thanks for joining us. Obviously, you and I get to work closely together now the last couple years with the Bombers. But take us back. Obviously, recruiting was earlier when you had to decide or decided to decide what college you were going to. You were the #1 recruit coming out of high school, super young, obviously chose to go to OU, and your path took you, as we mentioned, to Ole Miss and A&M as well. Just talk about your journey a little bit and kind of what you learned along the way. And then I'll give you a follow-up, remind you at the end, is like, what would you have considered as a younger athlete if you had to do it over again?
Definitely, let me start with the rule change. I think was one of the greatest things that happened to our sport, like making kids decide at such a young age. I hadn't even stepped foot on my high school campus. The biggest school I'd ever been in was a middle school. Like, what did I know about deciding about where I wanted to spend 4 years of my career? And I got lucky. I chose a place that was very successful, and I learned a lot while I was there. I was able to win a national championship, but starting from the journey so young, it was a lot of pressure that I don't think I was really prepared for. All of a sudden, starting in 8th grade, there was a spotlight on me in our small softball community that is pretty big these days and sometimes can feel like it is the whole world. It was a lot of pressure put on me at a young age that I wasn't ready to handle. And I think the beginning of my journey, I really let that affect me. And I listened to what everyone had to say. And I was always looking, what are people saying about me? What are people thinking? Am I pitching well? What am I doing? What can I do better? And I got so obsessed with what everyone around me was thinking that I forgot to focus on myself. And if I was going to go back and do it over again, I would definitely say, this is a journey, and there's going to be highs and there's going to be lows, but every part of it has made me who I am today. And at the end, I probably wouldn't change it now that I'm thinking about it, because it all came together and it worked out how it was supposed to. But when I turned 16, we won PGF. That was a huge deal for myself and my team. I think it prepared me. I know it prepared me being on Firecrackers for the journey that I was going to have and getting to play for Tony and Holly and learn more about myself towards the end of my high school career going into college. When I got to OU, I had an injury. I was not ready to contribute. I'd picked up some bad mechanics, and I got to OU and I had to redshirt. I was the #1 recruit in my class. I was used to playing every big game, used to being in every big opportunity, and all of a sudden I wasn't going to see any games. And that was very different. I had to learn how to become a teammate, and I had to learn that the game is bigger than myself and it's not just about me, but I can still contribute even if I'm not playing. So what can I do to help my team even if I'm not out there on the field? And how can I keep getting better even when I'm not working to pitch next Tuesday, I'm working to pitch next season? And that's hard, like being in the place of every bullpen still matters because I'm preparing myself for something greater in the future. So I think that was really important for me. And then I got to learn from a lot of great leaders my freshman year at OU, and people like Sydney Romero and Shane Knighton, and getting to be their teammates and see how that senior class led and took from it what I liked, took what it maybe left what I wasn't as comfortable with. And I learned a lot about leadership in that time and what it meant to be a teammate. And sometimes I learned that the best thing I can do is be a great follower. I don't always have all the answers. A team full of 10 leaders isn't really a team. You can always lead by example, and that's how you earn the respect of your teammates. But sometimes the best thing I can do is be a really good follower and push the people around me to be the best that they can be. Then I got to Ole Miss and got to apply what I had learned, and that was really exciting.
Brooke, you hit something, or I want you to go back a little bit, because I think redshirting is popular in male sports in the college sphere. Mm-hmm. You will have baseball players, football players, a lot of them go in and know they're going to redshirt. They almost get excited about it because they know when they're 23, 24, now they're going into their senior year and they're physically in a better place than when they're 18. Talk about, I know you said it was hard because you were used to preparing to be able to play every day. Talk about that year and the mindset you took into it. And then again, let's say you were starting over and someone told you that today, how would you go into that? Because I do think there are pitchers specifically who, when a coach says, oh, you may redshirt, they hit the panic button, but I think the college level is so different that a lot of them could probably actually benefit from that year.
I think that it was the best thing I did in my softball career from an on-field standpoint, from an off-field standpoint, but it definitely was difficult. And I see after the fall, I actually approached Coach Gasso and Coach Rocha and said, hey, we just got Giselle Juarez, we got Shannon Sale, I'm still pitching illegally. I don't think I'm in the place to contribute to our team right now. And I think that a year of development would really help me if our team is in the place to do it. And thankfully, because we had such a deep pitching staff, I was able to get that red shirt and learn from Coach Rocha. And someone that was huge in my red shirt was Delaney Gorley. She was our grad assistant that year, and she would spend every bullpen with me during games. We would pitch to batters. She would work me through innings, situations. And even though I wasn't playing in game, I was also getting to face batters in practice. So being a freshman, being a red shirt, and facing the best hitters in the country, that was something that I would do over again every single time. So even though I wasn't getting in-game reps, I was still being pushed by the people around me, whether that was in the weight room, on the field, off the field. Redshirting, I think, was great for me.
And Brooke, one of the things that I've always really admired of you is your ability to maintain your love for the game, regardless of the highs and lows. You know, you've gone through a lot, and your red shirt journey, talking about that. But, you know, for players that maybe they're not on the field, whether it's redshirt or they don't have a starting spot, like how do you continue to maintain that love and passion for the game beyond just the work ethic, but like the internal, just still loving the game regardless of whether your role is on the field or not? How do you continue to, show up every day and just love the sport to the point that now, even despite your journey, you're now coaching and giving back? How have you maintained that love?
Once I finally started putting the team above myself and realizing that this is a team sport, it's not all about me. Even though I think that the world revolves around me and everyone does, I'd love for it to, it doesn't. And this sport especially, like, you can always, whether you're on the field or not, you can always push your teammates to be better. In practice, you can always bust your butt to make the people around you better. Even if you're not playing, if the person in front of you doesn't feel someone nipping at their heels, are they getting better? So when I started framing things and what am I doing to help my team and how can I do that, whether that was charting or picking pitches or just being a loud cheerleader sometimes from the dugout, but also in practice, when we faced each other live, I was going all out. I wanted to beat you, but I wanted to make you better too. So it wasn't just about me and my performance. It became about how am I pushing the people around me to be better. And then it just kind of made everything more meaningful because it wasn't just about me. Then when I watched my teammates in a big game hit a changeup or an off speed after having faced me in live, I felt like, okay, maybe I helped them prepare for that. Maybe I helped them in this moment from facing each other, or when I was in a big moment, I could be like, you know what? I've been facing all these great hitters for the past however many years just in practice. I'm prepared for this. My teammates have prepared me for this moment.
Talk a little bit about your evolution as a pitcher. I obviously didn't know you in high school. I had, we always heard things. I believe you were a hard thrower. I know there were times a little wild too from what the rumors that, would get down to San Marcos. I do remember, fun fact, I don't know if I've ever told you this story. I got the job at Texas State and you had already committed to OU. And I got this email blasting us for letting this talent in our backyard escape. And I was like, excuse me, sir, I just got the job and she had already committed. But some fan wanted to make sure I knew. And I was like, I don't think we're convincing her to stay here at Texas State instead of going to OU, but thanks. Obviously, we talked about you have Spinny Gals on Instagram and you're teaching pitching. You and I have plenty of talks about everything that pitching instead of throwing encompasses. But talk about your evolution and kind of how that change occurred over time.
Definitely at the start. I have been this tall since about the 5th grade. I don't know.
And
if
you are
like
how tall?
Yet.
For those of you who are just
5'11".
watching you.
So I grew really quickly. I was very awkward at the start, but once things came together, my velocity was good. And that's what I relied on, was blowing it past people. I wasn't really thinking through the game. I was just kind of throwing, and I was using my competitiveness to beat people. And at that level, I was able to do it. And then as I started getting older, especially sophomore year, moving out to play for Firecrackers and facing a new level of competition, I realized I can't blow it by people. I don't one, I don't throw hard enough anymore. And two, my movement is what's beating people. So I really started to buy into that. And how am I going to get my pitches spinning? How am I going to get them moving? How am I going to start to also outsmart people, like with pitch calling? Working with Tony, working with Holly, as they started to teach me what it meant to actually call pitches and attack hitters, and here's their hole, here's this, here's why we can beat them. I started to actually learn how to pitch. And then, like I said, going to OU and working with Delaney Gorley, she would work me through batters. We would talk about movement. She had a nasty changeup, which I still think about. So getting to learn from such a good spin pitcher. But I would just say, as I got older, I realized that there was a multitude of ways to beat people, and it didn't just have to be blowing it by them.
As you have transitioned now, obviously GA at Texas A&M, but you've been with the Bombers, our 16U team, for 3 years? This is your third summer, isn't it? Yeah. So 3 years with us. As you get these younger, I mean, I get our 18s, obviously, but you have the ones younger and you're preparing them to come up to Scott and I. What is one or two, I won't make you decide just one or two things you really try to emphasize with them at that young of an age that you know will prepare them not only for 18U, but obviously college, which is their goal?
The main thing is communication, knowing, like, having them understand I cannot read their mind and I'm just there to help them. Like, us attacking hitters is us. It is me, the pitcher, and the catcher out there trying to beat people. And if we don't have a clear communication between the three of us, it just makes things harder. How is this pitch feeling that day? How do you want to attack hitters? What are you comfortable with? In this moment, what do you want to throw? So the biggest thing is having clear communication and teaching them how to take ownership of their process. So it's not just me throwing numbers down and they're just do-do-do. No, like, I want them to understand, in this situation, we threw that pitch here because of this. And the more that I can help them take ownership of what they're doing, the better that they're going to be. Because at the end of the day, I'm not out there with them. Like, we're separated by some distance. I'm not in their ear telling them exactly what I want, exactly what they need to do. They need to learn and be able to do it for themselves. So I think the most important part about what I'm doing is equipping them for the future.
Kat, you kind of mentioned in one of the earlier episodes about the importance of charting and going through those charts with your pitchers. And I would say that as long as I've known Brooke, and when I had the pleasure to coach her in high school and travel ball, you have been like wise beyond your years, Brooke. But she was that type of pitcher that when she wasn't in the game, like, she was sitting with me talking through the game, talking through batters. Like, before games, we would go through charts. Between innings, we would go through charts. She's always been a student of the game. And that's one of the things that really excites me about now you coaching in the Bombers organization and giving back to younger players, because I think you're such a perfect example of what all pitchers should be in terms of being a student of the game and really communicating and taking in information. That's, I think, one of the reasons why Brooke and I got so close is she always just stuck with me in the dugout, like, so, but I love that. We've talked about that. Kat talked about that in previous episodes, but that is who Brooke has always been as long as I've known her.
And talk about that a little bit. Obviously, again, you and I work together, and so we use probably the same chart, I think, still. But as you're working with one pitcher, what do you have the other pitchers in the dugout doing?
So in the dugout, let's say all my pitchers are going to throw that day. So we don't need any extra bullpens. All my pitchers are throwing. I have a chart that they keep. It's a tally chart, and it just works through, like, batters faced, first pitch strikes, 2-0 counts. And as they're keeping this chart, we start to get a picture of what's going on. And then at the end of the weekend, I dump everyone's chart into a Google Excel sheet, and then we can start to filter it by, okay, what innings are we giving up runs in? What innings are we maybe having more 2-0 counts in? When are we getting ahead of batters? And then we start to get a picture of how they're doing. And then let's say it's a day where they don't. We're not all going to pitch that day. We have 5 pitchers on staff. We're very lucky, but sometimes not everyone will throw. I have a Rapsodo, and 2 of them will go down and throw a bullpen on the Rapsodo. And once I take that information, I'm now creating Google Excel sheets for them that show their movement profiles and their vertical spread, and just giving them all the information necessary, or that I think is necessary, without overwhelming them at the same time.
I like that, because I think it's so important to keep pitchers engaged in the game. And I've mentioned it on a couple of our other podcasts, and you obviously know because you were there with us in Indiana last year. You know, I sat Haley Nutter for almost 2 straight days because she wasn't performing how I needed her to. And instead of pouting, she asked to chart, and she probably was the equivalent of you with Holly when you were playing for the Firecrackers. She was right next to me charting. She would remind me if a kid got a hit, like what pitch it was on. She said she started, trying to visualize, okay, if she's calling this pitch, because she's right-handed like Cambry was, if she's calling this pitch for Cambry, I bet this is where she wants it. And if she didn't know where I wanted it, she would ask, like, are you trying to stretch the plate? Are we trying to go for a strike? And I think that's so important because you can learn so much by charting. And you can also learn by seeing tendencies. As you said, I probably need a copy of your tally chart, but I think pitchers don't realize how often a pitcher in front of them is getting in the hole, getting behind in the count. And so your job when you go in is to go at hitters because yes, they're comfortable. The other pitcher's been getting 2-0 or 2-1 every at bat almost kind of thing. And so I like that you're doing that. Let's flip gears a little bit mentality wise. If you are getting, let's say some of our 14s move up with you for the first time, what's the discussion between you and them on the mentality you kind of expect them to have when they take the circle?
When they take the circle, first and foremost, I want them to have intent with what they're doing. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Have you faced them in the past? What are you looking for? That's a big thing, is our intent. How are we looking to attack hitters? Are we going out there saying, you know what? Even if I don't have my best stuff, I can still win. I don't need my best stuff to have my best game. Sometimes Sydney Lessentine this past year, A&M, had a terrible warm-up. And I'm down there in the bullpen with her. I'm like, okay, Sid, you know what? Warm-ups don't matter. Sometimes we have a terrible warm-up and we go out there and we pitch great. It's not a big deal. I'll be damned if she didn't have 19 strikeouts that game. So I think it's big to realize, like, one, we don't have to have our best stuff, and two, our warm-up is not indicative of what our performance is going to be. Do you go out there in the right headspace to attack hitters? And then I would say when they're moving up from fins, I think the beginning is an adjustment because they're facing better hitters, and just like the jump to AU, they're confused. They're like, what I've been doing for so long has worked. Why is it not working? And so just kind of talking them through that adjustment of, okay, maybe we got away with drop balls at this level, but where we're at now, we're going to have to spread that or we're going to have to bring it down. So not having a freak out of what, just because we're giving up some hits, it's not the end of the world. How do we adjust? What are we going to do to get better? How are we going to keep improving our game? So I would say just keeping them focused on the task at hand and not letting things spiral.
Okay. So you talked a lot about communication between player and coach. You've had to have some big girl conversations now transitioning to your college experience. You've had to go into your coach's offices and have some tough combos. You've transferred more than once. And what would be your advice about establishing relationships with your coaches so you do feel comfortable to have those big girl combos? And if you don't feel necessarily comfortable, but it's necessary to have those combos, like, how can players approach that? I think there's a lot of players that they shy away from tough conversations that need to be had. And again, one of the things I've always admired about you is your ability to do the tough stuff and have the hard conversations. But what would be your advice to players out there about having those tough kind of combos when they need to be had?
I would start with what you said about building a relationship. I think it's so important to build a relationship, not only with your teammates, but with your coaches. And I think that athletes a lot of times wait for the coach to kind of initiate that. And yes, it is up to a coach to initiate with their players to a certain extent, but start to take ownership over the relationship that you have with your coach. The best thing I did for myself at Ole Miss, I would go into Jamie Traxel's office all the time. We would talk softball, we would talk life, we would talk about Finley, we would just chat. And it made the relationship that I had with her so much better. It hurt so much worse to go in and say, I've decided to enter the portal, but we had built a relationship where we respected each other, and she understood that at the end of the day, I was doing what's best for me, and I wish nothing but the best for her and her program. So I think that building that on the front end definitely helps on the back end, but just being a freshman can be hard in general, and going in and getting to know your coach and understanding, like, hey, can we look at my swings from practice the other day? Hey, can we go over my film? Coaches love that. They want you to take ownership of your process, and then you're building a relationship with them that just makes you more comfortable. And I feel like the more comfortable you are around the people you're with, the better that you perform.
Some of the verbiage that you've used is your ability to learn to fail forward. And again, you've gone through ups and downs, and can you describe that a little bit? What would be that definition of failing forward to you, and how have you learned to do that?
So we play a game of failure, and that can be difficult at times, but the way I look at it, if we're going to fail anyway, we might as well fail going 100%. Knowing that you did everything that you could, you laid it out on the line for that ball, you did everything you could with that pitch, instead of looking back and going, dang, I wish I wouldn't have been passive. I wish I would have gone all out for that. I wish I wouldn't have been overthinking in that moment. When I just decided, you know what, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I'm not worried about what the outcome is because I've put everything into it. Like my career. Would I have written my career the way that it went? Now I would, but 13-year-old me didn't think this was how it's going to go. But now I can look back on it and say, I worked my ass off. I did everything that I could. And this journey made me who I am. And that's all that I can ask from it. So I think that failing forward just means going for it and understanding, yeah, you might mess up, but at the end of the day, it's just making you the person that you are.
Would you say that you have like unusually tough skin and your ability to handle failure and the emotions, I would say, that come with failure, being able to process those emotions, or is that something that's developed for you over time?
Definitely developed. Like I mentioned earlier, being younger and the opinions of everyone, I would be pitching bad in a high school game and the fans are yelling, she's going to Oklahoma. 14 years old. I'm like, hey man, come on, give me a break. So at the beginning, I was definitely like, every failure, I was like, oh my God, what are people going to say about me? Oh my God, great. I've done it again. Oh, dealing with failure at first was really difficult. I wasn't good at it. And getting older, I just had to realize, like we talked about earlier, if I can say I did everything I could, I'm proud of myself. Most of the people that are saying these terrible things about me have never gotten off the couch and even tried. At least I put myself out there and I put my best foot forward, and I'm proud of that.
I think that's so like great, just great advice, especially in a day and age with social media. Texas sports, obviously, from what I hear, are on a whole different level than we've got out here in California. But I mean, it's like you got a big stage out there in Texas with sports, am I right? But with social media, I think, do you have to kind of take a step back and not read some of the stuff that people post? Because I know, especially like, for instance, portal or transfers, those kinds of things, people have a lot of opinions. And like you said, it's a lot of people that have never gotten out of off the couch, have never played the sport a day in their life. And they tend to be very opinionated and not always so nice. But how do you either A, handle that, or B, do you just kind of look the other way and not get into that? Because I think that sometimes players can go down a rabbit hole, especially with all these player rankings and things like that. But how do you handle that? What's your approach, and what's been your approach in the past?
I would say focusing on myself and the people that are in my support circle. So the people that matter most to me, that take care of me, that help me become my best self. If they think that what I'm doing is good and they think that I'm working hard and being a good person, that's what matters. The people I've never met, the people that have never played, why would I care about their opinion? And it took a long time for me to realize that. Like, at the end of the day, what does it matter? I don't know them. The people that I love and the people that I care about love and care about me, and it's their opinions that should matter to me.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So as you navigate recruiting with your kids, because obviously you have a handful that do it there at the 16 level, while we have a few that come up to the 18s, what would you tell pitchers is top three things to look at as they're looking at where they should go to school?
I got told in my recruiting process, if you were to blow your knee out and never play softball again, would you love where you're at? If you were just a student there, would you love that? I think that's important. Because yes, softball is a huge part of what we're doing, but you're also a student there. That's where you're spending 4 years of your life, 50% of your time. Like, that's a big deal. You should care about where you're going. But also, I would say, how do you feel about the pitching coach? That's who you work with every single day. If you loved the head coach, but didn't really love the pitching coach, like, that's great. You loved the head coach, but you're not working with them. That's not your positions coach. So I think that's extremely important. And then I would look at, how have pitchers in the past done there? Like, how have pitchers worked with their pitching coach? Have they transferred in? Have they transferred out? How many pitchers are they holding on to? Like, I think it's important to see what the people before you are doing and how their journeys have been handled, because it's kind of indicative of what kind of the plan is for you. And that's why you need to ask coaches, like, hey, what do you see for me in the future? What's your vision of what I bring to your program? What do you see in the future for me? How can I get better? And if they can't really answer that, do they really have a vision of you in their program?
Yeah, that's really good advice.
That is, I agree 100%. I think the big thing is the developmental piece, watching what other pitchers have developed or haven't. And then, like you said, do they have a plan? I remember recruiting was much later when I was going through the process. You know, we decided in the fall of our senior year of high school, which sounds crazy now because people would be like, wait, what? You decided like a month before signing day? Like, that's how it was. But I was really impressed with the time. Washington's head coach, Teresa Wilson, I'm not lying to you, when she had a 4-year, I want to say this was a 15-page document of like how I was going to grow, what, you know, academically, what was going to happen, athletically, strength wise. I mean, she had a plan mapped out for 4 years, and, you know, not every place did that. That's not necessarily a common thing, but you could tell the effort and the thought that had been put into, okay, here's how you're going to get from where you are now to where you want to be in 4 years and developmental wise. And I think any pitching coach that, as you said, can't verbalize what they see and how they could see you growing, I don't want to say it's a red flag, but it's something that you need to dig deeper into, because it's more than, hey, I think you're going to come here and be the ace. Well, the ace in year 1 and the ace in year 4 are two very different things, because ace year 1, there's film on you. Everybody knows your tendencies, your movement patterns are there. So what are you going to be that's different in year 4 for you to still be the ace? Because there's only so many Nijas and Jordies who can not have to evolve a ton and still be successful. So I think that's a huge piece. Last question I'm going to have for you. You are obviously teaching in multiple different capacities. I was never a hard thrower like you were. So when you're teaching, and take out the mindset and communication piece, a physical tool for a pitcher, what is the top 2 things you're focusing on?
Legs and direction. I think that our ability to use our legs really sets the scene for everything else. And it might not be just to have high velo, but just being able to use our legs puts us in good positions. When we get loaded, when we explode off properly, when we have good direction, I understand that like our glove arm doesn't have to be perfectly to our target, all the things, but I think to a certain extent, we should be working towards our target. And when things are taking us away from our target, it just makes pitching more difficult. Pitching is hard enough. So I like to tell my kids, it's a fastball until it's not, because we're exploding hard, we're launching to our target. And then when it's time to snap, it's time to manipulate the ball.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Well, Brooke, we have really enjoyed having you on. So much good insight. And I want to end this, if you guys are okay with it, with a little game. And not so much a game, but it's a get to know Brooke and Kat. And I'm going to ask you guys some questions that hopefully these answers nobody knows and they may find interesting. So you guys ready for it?
Sounds good.
All right, here we go. Get to know Brooke and Kat. Brooke, you're going to go first. What is your favorite pregame snack?
I don't know if it's a snack, but anytime I saw the Jersey Mike's boxes, I got excited. And if they included the oil and vinegar on the side, it was a good day.
Yes, I had that yesterday, actually. So good. Kat, same question. Favorite pregame?
Well, in college, our pregame meal, anytime it was Jason's Deli, I got super excited. And it could be almost anything from there. But my stomach can handle almost anything. So when they'd have the Southwestern chicken chili that they used to have, that they no longer have, it was a good day for me. But when you're going to go snacks, usually a smoothie and goldfish. In game in college, it was chocolate Teddy Grahams.
Right.
I hoarded the mini, like when they got the variety pack, I would get there first and all 5 chocolate bags would be in my locker.
Nice.
All right. Do you have any superstitions, either in-game or like a pre-game ritual?
I definitely was superstitious about my hair. If a certain hairstyle worked, it was coming out the next day, no questions asked. And then as soon as it didn't, we were on to the next style. So I was not consistent in that, in my superstition, but I always thought my hair played a big role in how it was going to go.
Mine's not superstition as much, just routine. My bullpen always my pregame bullpen was always the same way. Pitches were always in the same order. I don't touch the chalk line, so you know, especially in college, you saw me kind of little hop over the chalk line, so that way I didn't touch it. But that was about it. I didn't, hair changed. Occasionally, if we won, my team would tell me I had to keep the same hair, kind of similar to Brooke, but it wasn't like a me thing, because sometimes you would see the ugliest bun and sometimes you see braids. It was very inconsistent. But I did, in college at least, when I would drive to the field, it was always a windows down, music on, not the same music all the time, but just that could have been a superstition, I guess, just to lay back and actually relax on the way to the field.
So going into music, if you had a walk-up song, so let's say you were a hitter, if you had a walk-up song, what would your walk-up song be? Kat, what about you first?
We got walkout songs as pitchers, and the one I used the most was Can't Be Touched by Roy Jones Jr. And then late in my career, pro ball, I used Inner Sandman.
Nice. What about you, Brooke?
Oh gosh, one year I used A Little Party from Great Gatsby, and I thought it was so fun and energetic. And then last year, as a 6th year, I played the Eminem song Without Me, because it kept saying, guess who's back again.
For those of you that don't know Brooke, she's very funny, by the way, and witty. All right. Are you a coffee before the game kind of pitcher, kind of gal?
I'm not, unless it's a morning game, and that's just because coffee's part of my morning routine. But no, I'm not I'm not big on like caffeine and all of that. I don't necessarily avoid it, but I don't purposely make sure I have an energy drink or coffee or anything like that.
I like a good energy drink. Being at Ole Miss, we had the tea trailer. Katie's wife, CJ, owned it. So we had the nutrition teas before games. Missed that.
I remember my first, like, Tony's really big on caffeinating our pitchers, and I'm not really a caffeine person. So, like, to me, like, if I had caffeine before a game, I think I would be, like, jittery, you know? So I remember the first year that I was coaching with the team, and I don't remember you in this particular memory, Brooke. So maybe we weren't caffeinating you, but I remember the first time you told me you need to go to the store and get energy drinks and make sure that the pitchers are sipping them between innings. And like when we were playing in Florida one time and I didn't have energy drinks, like you got to go to the snack bar and get coffee for the pitchers. And this isn't just like if we have one game, but if we're playing like back to back to back. And I looked at him like, energy drinks? What? Like I looked at him like he was crazy. And now it actually is kind of a part of our pitching bag. We always have like some kind of energy in there. It's not like slamming a whole energy drink, but like taking sips when needed kind of thing. But that was very new to me. Not as a pitcher. I think I would be going crazy throwing the ball over the backstop if I had caffeine. I don't respond well to it. But
I'm not even like a pre-workout person. I don't like the jitters that it causes.
No, me neither. I got to be calm, cool, and collected. All right, last question. If you were not a pitcher, what position would you play?
Well, I'm left-handed, so there's not many options. But I always say if I could be someone for the day, I'd want to be Caitlin Lowe and be able to be fast, and so maybe an outfielder. And obviously be able to slap and get on base like she can.
I would pay to see Cat the Slapper. I would love
I did slap in high school, Holly. That was how I
Did you?
hit because, yeah.
We're going to have to pull up some footage. Do you have any video of that?
Yeah, on a VHS tape here at my house, I'm sure somewhere.
All right. I'm going to hold you to trying to find that, but we got to find that clip. Brooke, what position would you play?
I would definitely want to be a slapper. I think being a shortstop would be so fun. Like getting to make all the cool plays, yes, but like leading the infield, communicating, the energy of it. I think being a shortstop would be so fun.
I agree. I think you got the personality for that. You could do that.
Thank you.
Brooke Vestal, year 9, shortstop.
Coming to a college near you.
Yeah. All right. Brooke, thank you so much for coming on the show. We love you. Cannot wait to hang with you this summer. As we said, she's coaching the 16 under Bombers, so Kat gets to see her more often than I do. But all 3 of us will be together in Colorado here in a couple weeks. So excited for that. Any parting words, Brooke?
Would just say that comparison is the thief of all joy. So don't compare this journey to others because that's not the point of it. The point of it is you and being the best version of yourself that you can be, and getting caught up in what everyone else is doing is not the way to a happy life.
Very well said.
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop.
Perfect. Thank you guys for joining us for another episode of the Pitcher Perfect podcast. Brooke, we appreciate you carving out some time talking with us. I'm sure we'll have you back on as we continue this journey in the podcast stratosphere. But we are always looking for the likes, the follows, share this podcast, share Brooke words to other pitchers and people on your team. But we will be back with another episode next time.
Thanks so much for having me.
Bye, guys.